Welcome to the Pineapple Couch with E-Rob. Today is Monday, March 1st. Happy March, everyone. And episode 83, we are going to be talking WandaVision. The season finale, episode 9, is coming out this Friday. We just saw episode 8. Really excited about that. If you're enjoying the show, you can watch us on YouTube as well as subscribe to the podcast. And let's get right into it, folks. We're going to be talking about Marvel. We're going to be talking about WandaVision. You know who I have here. It's my good friend, Peter Gonzalez. Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about the penultimate episode.
Yes. I want to get this out there because we were just talking about this. How the hell do they wrap this thing up?
Especially if it's, the 2 hour plus rumor that was originally floating around, I was like, okay, that gives them a good amount of time to kind of wrap things together, set things up going forward. But if you're doing a 50-minute, which is the new rumor, episode, how does that happen? I mean, there's too much, and it's like, is this just going to be one of those episodes where you're going to have to immediately after it's over go back and watch it just because you're so breathless by the time it's over?
It could be if they pack it. I hope they go that route because I do want some answers, because the other thing I think they might do is just leave us with a lot of cliffhangers. It's like a lot that directly goes into Doctor Strange 2. But Peter, Doctor Strange 2 comes out in like a year, over a year. That's a long time to have those questions. And it's not just like little questions. It's like, what is going on? Is this person from this universe? Like it's giant questions about the future of the MCU that I don't think they're going to leave them just so open-ended, but who knows? So let's get into episode 8, which was a good episode, a heartbreaking episode. It was kind of like Marvel's take on A Christmas Carol, if you will, with Ebenezer Scrooge. So episode's going to start off. Oh, obviously, spoilers.
Don't listen if you have not watched.
Yeah, if you're clicking though on an episode, a YouTube link or a podcast that says WandaVision episode 8 review, I would hope you've seen it. But if not, this is your last warning. Okay. Episode starts off. It's the Agatha flashback. We see her in Salem, Massachusetts. Is it like 1683, something like that?
Salem witch trials.
Yep. So, and she is essentially surrounded by like 7 witches, and she's at like the stake in the middle. You know, like if you could think into those movies, they have like they would burn witches at the stake. It's basically that setup, and she is being accused of using or learning about dark magic is kind of how I interpret it. That's outlawed. What did you think of that?
No,
why do you think they were gonna why are they doing this to her?
It reminded me of Doctor Strange, how the Ancient One's first apprentice delved into the magic they weren't supposed to. So it gave me those kinds of vibes, and I think it's interesting too that it was her. It was like her coven. It was witches that were basically burning her at the stake,
and it was her mom.
Yeah. And it's like, I love the line where she's like, "I can be good," and the mom was like, "Yeah, that's not possible." Because it's like, how dark and evil is Agatha really? Then it's like your own mom is like, "There's no saving you. You're gonna be a big problem."
Yeah, well, great call by you referencing Doctor Strange. I always forget the name of that villain. So if you're watching this, you're probably yelling it out. But keep in mind like how he goes into the dark dimension or the dark arts, and it's that purple, same as Agatha. So Peter, what I am assuming from this is that did she have the Darkhold maybe at this point, and that's where she's learning this stuff? Because I believe that what she is being accused of whatever dark magic she's up to and she's being accused of in the opening scene is who is like basically helping her now. Like who she's working for now. Like whether I do still think that this is a clear indication that there's a bigger bad out there that is kind of using maybe Agatha as like a disciple, something like that. What do you think?
No, I think so. I think there's definitely, watching this episode, especially with the fly situation, which I mean was such a like
weird.
Marvel's so self-aware of what fans are thinking, and it's just like nope, we're not. That's not what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so I do think there is something more in play because just certain things in the lineup in whether it's the dialogue, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
the whole Agatha All Along theme song that's like that she's messing this up for Wanda, but it's like if Wanda doesn't even know that she's fully doing these things,
Mm-hmm.
how is it being messed up? There's too much unless she's working with Hayward.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into what Hayward is up to. I thought I had an idea of who Hayward is, and now I really truly have no idea. He might just be a government stiff, but he could be a big bad. He could be a scroll. We'll get into that. So Agatha basically kills all the witches that are like they all shoot this magic at her, and then she basically uses that as a way to send all her magic out, and it basically just drains the life out of all of them, including her mother. And then she goes off, and here we are, and we're back to the present day. And Agatha is. Did you notice how she talks to the bunny?
Mm-hmm.
The bunny's someone.
Yeah. Yeah, fully. I mean, if it's Ralph, if it's
Yeah.
somebody, there's something that bunny is. Maybe the bunny is Mephisto, and she turned Mephisto into the bunny. I don't know. There's something's up with that bunny.
Yeah. Well, quickly on that. Remember, I think we were talking about this a week ago when I was saying like maybe like Agatha is doing all this, like taking the power from Wanda and like the kids, all that to like maybe bring Mephisto back to life, not back to life, but to a bigger form. I don't know.
Well,
We will
that
see.
to go along with that though, when she mentions the transmutation, and she says how hard it is to do a simple thing like turning the fly into the bird, it's like so maybe she doesn't have the power. Maybe as far as she could get was to turn him into the rabbit, and she can't get him beyond that state because she does mention the necromancy,
Mm-hmm.
and the rabbit's name was Senor Scratchy, and I guess
Mm-hmm.
Scratch can be determined as a name for the devil also, like in certain
Mm-hmm.
literature. So
Yep.
there's these balls are all in the air right now.
Yeah. It and it's important because I think to note how there is like a sense of jealousy from Agatha to Wanda
Oh,
of
100%.
like I've been working on this for 400 years and you just do this. What's the line like you're using this power to make breakfast for dinner.
And have magic on autopilot.
Yeah. And so there's a clear jealousy. And so what Agatha is trying to figure out this episode is she's trying to figure out how the hell Wanda did this. How did this come to be? Which is also convenient because we don't know how Wanda did this. So we're gonna find out. So like I said earlier, we're going to go through like a Christmas Carol type thing, Ghost of Girlfriends Past, if you will. The first trip we're gonna go on is we're gonna go check out Wanda's childhood, the infamous night where her parents were killed, and her and Pietro sat in like a apartment, I think, for 48 hours or something next to a bomb that was ticking. So we get that whole like the whole like backstory of where Wanda's from. We see her loving family. We see that they had American nights where they would watch American sitcoms and practice their English. And I thought that was very touching. But Peter, the biggest thing that came out of this, because I'll go to you like in a second about what you took of all this, but did you notice how when the bomb is ticking, so we were always said that the bomb was defective. That's why it never went off in that, and they stood there hearing it. No, no, no. Young Wanda used her magic to turn that bomb off, which means she had the X gene, she had the mutant gene before the Mind Stone. That is huge, Peter.
I think it speaks again to how they're able to weave in the whole X-Men mythology into this again in a way that's organic and natural because I think there's a line we'll get to when we go into the next scene that kind of brings that to light about how she's kind of had this all along.
Yeah.
And she's been doing that. I think what's really interesting about the whole first ghost situation, if you will, is the choice of that they watched the Dick Van Dyke Show with a very specific episode, which is all about someone who. So I've watched the Dick Van Dyke Show growing up, so I'm fully aware of these things. But like the episode is about the main character gives himself the nightmare because he's in, and he keeps trying to wake up in the episode, and he can't wake up until the very end from this nightmare, which could very well play into the whole idea of WandaVision from the get-go that she's created this reality and she can't get out of it. So I think that's and the fact that they did it so specifically, like season, what it was, and episode 21, there's a very specific reasoning why this episode was chosen as the one that they're watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned the name Nightmare. It's like Nightmare and Mephisto. Those are the two we keep hearing of, like, every time. Basically, this show, it's like made us all incredibly paranoid, because whenever we hear some sort of reference to like hell or the devil, we're like, oh my gosh. And if we hear something about a nightmare, a bad dream, we're like, oh my gosh. And it's so far we have no answers. But anything else on that first trip? My main thing with the first trip, it was just hard. It's heartbreaking what you see Wanda go through. She's had just fucking shittiest life of all time.
Exactly. It's like, how much can you throw at one character? I did like when she meant, when there was that emphasis also on mischief and like shenanigans, like it's stuff that's not super serious that are happening, which again I feel like plays into how she's created this world, but it's not, she's never really meant to hurt anybody or do things super serious. And then by the end of the episode, everything will be okay, as she tells Pietro about the bomb. She's like, it's gonna pass, this will pass.
Good points. So the next place they go is, we see, I mean, this is probably Wanda 5 to 8 years later, I'm assuming. And we're at the Stryker Hydra labs, basically, where the same group that we saw at the beginning of Age of Ultron, that was with Wanda and Quicksilver. And we basically hear how they keep doing these tests with Loki's scepter, aka the Mind Stone, and it's just killing everyone. Everyone's getting killed. Very bad stuff's going on. But they keep doing the human testing. They want to figure it out. And so Wanda goes in, and we see this crazy cool scene of basically the Mind Stone coming to her and opening up. And this is what I would assume is where her powers are intensified or magnified with this exposure to the Mind Stone. But keep in mind, she did already have these powers. And then maybe the coolest part of the episode is in the reflection, when that big yellow light's going on, we look at Wanda's eyes looking at the stone, and we see a reflection in her eyes, and it's the Scarlet Witch from the comics. It's like the ultimate version of Wanda, like when she's the most powerful. So maybe that's her seeing into the future of her being like this Nexus, like crazy powerful being. But that was maybe my favorite moment of the entire episode, Peter. That was unbelievable. What did you think?
It totally took me by surprise, because we'd heard the story, we'd seen the glimmers in Ultron in the post-credit scene before, and we were like, okay, she got her powers from the scepter. But to see it like this, and to see it be something that ties back into if it is the Munich gene, if it is all these things at once from when she was young, that it's kind of, because as Agatha tells her, this would have died on the vine had you not been exposed to the Mind Stone. So I think that it really sets the tone going forward, that they're really leaning into the magical aspects of certain things, which is going to obviously go out into the rest of the MCU going forward.
Yeah. And this, we're really, if phase 1 of the MCU kind of emphasized like the Iron Man, Captain America route, the new era after Infinity War Endgame is going to emphasize the Doctor Strange, Wanda. We're going to get Blade. Things are going to get, and I think in Ant-Man 3 we're going to see some crazy stuff as well. But let's not get off topic there. Anything else on this scene? Oh, one thing is that the people watching, it just like the camera glitches out when, like, because Wanda has this whole interaction with the stone, but the people watching from like the experiment labs just see it like glitch out and Wanda's on the ground. They don't see any of it, which I thought was kind of interesting, because it's kind of exactly what Wanda has been doing throughout this series, or in the beginning at least, where she would, when the broadcast was going out to Sword, she would like cut certain parts,
Yeah, and I think another thing I noticed before we move on is, after the whole exposure to the stone, we see her in like this holding cell, and she's watching the Brady Bunch again. She's been through something traumatic, and now she's watching comfort television again, which interestingly was that specific episode with the doll, which is the same doll that Vision was using when she was pregnant and he was practicing putting the diaper on it. So it's like everything that is so tied in and interconnected.
That's the thing. Marvel is so good at having all these little Easter eggs that you zoom in, you see And sometimes I'm like, why am I looking so hard into this? Am I crazy? But time and time again, Marvel has shown that they do these things, and the interconnectivity and it's awesome to see. It is awesome to see. So third trip we go, we see the events right after Ultron, basically right before Civil War, beginning of Civil War, where it's at the Avengers compound, and we really see one of the first big time interactions between Vision and Wanda. Wanda is watching Malcolm in the Middle, I
I
believe,
think so. Yeah.
and she basically is just grieving from the loss of Pietro. Vision tries to help, and she basically says, "All I want to do is to be able to see him." And then we a very, very, very great line comes from Vision. Just Paul Bettany. I guess this is, I would say, the beginning of their relationship. But correct me if I'm wrong about the line. But he basically says to Wanda about her grief, saying, "What is grief but not love over achieving?" Right?
I thought it was persevering.
Love persevering. Yeah, you're right. And I thought that's a great line because that's something. Not only does that apply to Wanda in that moment, in a end of Ultron or whatever, but it applies to Wanda right now of what she's going through. So her going to see that again, I think that that will be important because I think Vision's gonna have to die. And I think
Unfortunately, yeah.
she's gonna need to be able to somewhat be able to handle that grief and feel, I don't know. Maybe it all just goes to hell. But what else
There,
did you get from this scene?
there was an interesting line when she's talking about the grief, how it feels like waves. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like earlier when Monica was talking about her grief, she kind of says that it was like waves. And again, there is that connection that Monica understands to a degree what she's going through, which is why Monica was able to reach her in the glimmerous moments that she's been able to. Like there is that shared experience, which I think is so interesting because you're supposed to be superheroes that are like, indestructible and go through everything, but at the end of the day, they do have real emotions that they are dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people connect to these shows so much. Because again, this show is about grief.
It is. It's all about how to deal with the loss of something or someone that you love and how it's okay to be sad and to deal with the consequences. But it is better than to push them away or make an alternate reality where none of them are there for sure. And so the next part we go to is pretty immediately. Agatha takes Wanda to the Sword headquarters from where earlier in the show we saw Hayward shared the footage where it really seemed that Wanda broke into the Sword headquarters and stole Vision's body, antagonized the people there, was like somewhat of a threat. And we find out that that is some BS. That is all not true. Basically what happens, Wanda shows up, she's trying to she goes to the front desk and is being nice and is like, "Please let me go see Vision." And Peter, before we get more into this, it just seems like this was a trap laid by Hayward to get Wanda to come, doesn't it?
Yeah, this was such a setup. I mean, the fact that he answered he called the front desk and was like, "Yo, let her in," and the fact that this is literally days after Tony Stark's funeral. This is days after the giant battle of Endgame.
Yeah,
this is the blip. She's literally just come back into reality too. Like she's been just gone.
Yeah.
So along with half the population, they just didn't exist.
Yeah, and so
there's a lot on her.
Yeah,
head.
and so it's just thing after thing of Hayward trying to trigger Wanda essentially, because the other thing, Peter, they've had Vision's body for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So Wanda goes in and she starts to talk to Hayward, and Wanda wants the body, but basically Hayward's like, "You can't bury $3 billion worth of vibranium." And what was really interesting to me is the way Hayward was proudly displaying the way they were just recklessly cutting Vision up, pulling him apart, definitely meant to trigger Wanda, because what I think, and this is pretty obvious, is that Hayward couldn't reboot the Vision. And so what he wanted to do was have Wanda have a freak out and with all her power reboot the Vision. And it didn't work then, because what we find out, Peter, is that everything Hayward did was a lie. Wanda didn't steal Vision. Wanda sadly says, I don't feel you when she goes up to him, which is basically they always say like, didn't Vision and Wanda say, I just feel you, that sort of
Call
thing.
back to Infinity War. Yep.
Yep. And she sadly just kind of goes on her way, does not antagonize anyone. Hayward, though, in the meantime, like was telling his troops stand down and was like watching eagerly. And we see Wanda just leaves. So what did you take from all that?
What stood out to me was I was like, you can bring their soulmate back online, or excuse me, back to life, which again, kind of in my mind, connects him to Agatha because Agatha wanted her to bring back Sparky. I mean, but no, that wasn't Sparky. Was it? Was it Sparky? Is that his name?
Yeah, Agatha was. It wasn't even that she wanted her to bring back Sparky. It was that moment where the kids asked, and Agatha was like, "You can bring people back to life." Like, and that seemed like a real moment. Like, so I think that's great because maybe Hayward and Agatha could be working together because maybe they're both trying to get the Vision online, but also maybe Agatha's trying to get someone else back to life. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's like, again, this scene was just like, I mean, this whole episode is like, Elizabeth Olsen needs an Emmy Award by next year. Like,
she has to get it. It's unbelievable.
It's impossible to not. The range of emotions in this, this is quality television.
Yeah, and I think one thing that about this show that has been underrated was obviously it did start a little bit slow with the eras and like the period pieces they did. I mean, but that was some of the best acting we saw from Elizabeth Olsen, the way she could click in and out of being in a 50s housewife to the Scarlet Witch, essentially. Yeah, she's just been incredible. She's been incredible. And so she leaves, and we see the most heartbreaking thing that Vision bought her a property at some point. Who knows when he bought this, because I don't know when he would have been able to, but he bought her a property in Westview, New Jersey, and it was it wrote "A Place to Grow Old" with a heart, Love V, I believe is how it was signed. Yeah. And Wanda drives to Westview. We see many of the characters from the sitcom or the bubble, they're real versions. And one thing that immediately jumped out to me, Peter, is that this is one of the first times I think we're seeing the damage that the snap has done to like smaller towns and stuff like this. Because if you think about even just like the last year of normal life with Corona and how stuff is shut down and some restaurants haven't been able to. This is like the first glimpse of like, obviously we know like, yes, it was heartbreaking to lose people in the snap, but this is like kind of our first look at like the economic, you know what I mean? It's like, This is like a wasteland. Did that jump out to you?
No, it totally did. It was like, because it didn't look like a normal small town would have looked to me. Like, it didn't have that upbeat, happy vibe. It had that we've been through some stuff situation. I feel like the last time we did see something like that was when Ant-Man wakes up and he's in the storage unit, and he runs, and it's like there's like trash and there's like posters and stuff. So I think, but this was like small town America. This is where you don't expect to like, you don't see it in the movies so often, and you see. Yeah. But this is nice that again the movie's saying the snap wasn't just here; it was fully reaching.
Mm-hmm. And so she drives through the town. She gets to the property, and she's just overcome with grief, and she has like a meltdown, I would say, starts crying. And
very reminiscent of Age of Ultron when Pietro dies.
Very, but times a billion somehow, because she essentially, I don't know how to describe it. She just like explodes, and like all these waves of red just shoot out, and you see the hex expanding, and you see it turning buildings from modern to 1950s.
Black and white.
And then you see it's all the red magic doing this. And then you see this yellow magic that's reminiscent of the Mind Stone create Vision. And we're basically at the beginning of episode 1 after she creates all that. And I guess, Peter, it's huge how she created Vision. Because we talk about her being a Nexus being, and that's someone who can create realities and stuff. And she was able to literally create vibranium. She was able to recreate this Mind Stone. It isn't able to exist maybe outside of this bubble, but the fact she was able to do that is otherworldly, powerful, insane. That is like, it cannot be understated That's the most powerful thing I think we've seen in the entire MCU.
Yeah, Thanos looks like nothing compared to this. Like, this was just, it was so, and the fact that it was so emotion driven too. Like, it was something that it was, again, maybe this does speak to the fact that she is, losing it in a sense, but she was able to create this sanctuary outside of a television set and bring it into reality, which explains why each time things start to get weird in episodes like 1, 2, 3, she would just change it to and this is the next step, the next show she watched to feel better when things were not going well.
And it just what this episode also did was just a reminder. So it's good how you see how she creates the bubble, but it just the 4 back to back, just all these heartbreaking tragedies that happened to her really lead up to this. And now we're back. We're back. We're back in normal time. Agatha is realizing, like, shit, you've been through all this trauma, but we don't really know how Agatha's feeling until we hear the kids screaming. Wanda runs outside, and she has the kids hostage by some sort of like weird purple string rope. And she calls, for the first time in the MCU, she references Wanda's chaos magic. And then she also calls Wanda the Scarlet Witch for the first time in the MCU. What was your reaction to that?
It was it was up there with Cap catching the hammer. Like, I definitely think it was up there. I think it had that same level of like, we're going there. We're going to actually, the bar has been raised. This is going to get, it was setting up a finale that I don't know how it's going to do what it's going to do, but it's obviously, this episode is proof it can. Just also just the way that they had Agatha look even older, like from the beginning of the episode with the flashback to like how she was in WandaVision to the older. It's just like everything is just slowly starting to come together.
So I question to you really quick before we go to the post-credit scene is, do we think that reflection we saw in Wanda's eyes in the second trip they made, are we going to see that next episode? Is she going full Scarlet Witch next episode and that's what she will look like?
I think so. I think that if I think it's gonna be I hope she's battling Agatha. I hope that's a thing. My hope for the last episode is that she is gonna become the Scarlet Witch fully, and that's gonna happen because she has to in order to beat Agatha, because Agatha apparently is also pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I do think it will be interesting because we didn't see Monica or Pietro this episode. It is important to reference that Agatha does call him fake Pietro and says that she's been like controlling him. She didn't necessarily bring him here, but she's been controlling him. Isn't that what you got that from that?
I did, but that also makes me wonder, because Wanda says she didn't bring him here either.
Yeah.
So nobody brought fake Pietro here. Apparently somebody did, but neither of them are taking credit for it.
Yeah, I'm super confused on how that. Well, there is one person who could have maybe done it. It's like Wiccan.
That's true.
Remember, he asks about her brother and how he's so far away, and maybe he plucked because he has crazy powers like that. I don't know. Post credit scene, we see Hayward, our boy Hayward, the douchebag he is. He is talking about how they could never reboot the Vision. They tried hundreds and thousands of times, and eventually all they needed was a little of Wanda's magic. So that drone that they sent in to shoot at her and the kids, that she then walked out and sent with her magic out back at them, they used the magic from that drone to reboot Vision, or a new Vision, and holy shit, it is the White Vision. And that is what Hayward will be launching at the bubble. So we gotta assume, Peter, we're getting a bubble Vision versus White Vision. What was your, what's your take on this? What do you think is gonna happen? Because I just want to say, like, really quick, is it Ultron?
I mean, that would be quite the connection to tie it back to Age of Ultron, to be like, he still exists out there, and we brought him now into this new vessel, which was his ultimate goal in the beginning. That was supposed to be his body, and they mentioned that. Darcy mentions that when she's talking to Vision, I think episode 6 or 7, that he was going to be in that body, which was Ultron's creation.
Yeah, so there's a little quick reference point for everyone out there. The White Vision is in the comic books, but he's not a bad guy. So basically, what happens is something similar to what has happened. Vision gets put back together, and he's the White Vision, but he's put back together by like the Avengers, not bad people. And so when he comes back, he is not his like red and purple, green or whatever. He is all white, and he has no memories of the past, and he has no emotions. He's an emotionless robot because Vision, I guess he was kind of supposed to be that, but he developed these personalities and passion and grief and all that sort of stuff. So he's not necessarily a bad dude in the comic books, the White Vision. He just has no idea and doesn't remember anyone. But I do think he's going to go in and fight Vision, don't you? Like, we got a huge showdown going on.
I totally feel like it's going to be him versus Bubble Vision versus White Vision, Wanda and maybe the kids versus Agatha. I feel like we're going to get Pietro, whatever we end up calling him.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a scene similar to the great scene, one of the few great scenes in the X-Men movies, where the Sweet Dreams sequence where he runs around saving everybody. I feel like that might need to be the case. Like, get everybody out of Westview, get something along those lines. Because we're going to get an even bigger bad that's going to show up, and it's just going to be like, what is happening?
I think I'm definitely subscribed to like, we'll get to this question I have is like, is Pietro from the Fox universe? That's what everyone's talking about. I think he is. I don't understand why you would bring him in like this for him to not be, especially when your new movie coming out in a year is Multiverse of Madness and you just acquired these rights. I think that this is the Fox universe, and I do not think when he saw Monica and was like, Snooper's going to snoop, I did not think that was a bad thing. I think he and Monica are going to work together. And I think, yes, we better see a Sweet Dream scene. I actually rewatched Days of Future Past last night. And obviously that slow-mo scene isn't as good as the Sweet Dreams one because that's just iconic. But that dude, he's so great in those movies. So I really hope he stays around. And if you're mentioning the big bad, like if there is a bigger bad than Agatha, that explains why there's so many good guys in the bubble then. Because if it's Wanda and the kids and Quicksilver and Monica and Vision versus Agatha, it's kind of like, okay, well, they should be able to take that. But if there's a bigger, you're going to need all the guns. And can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Do you think it's Fox universe, Pietro?
Oh, 100%. Since day one, I've fully bet on that theory. I'm sticking to that theory till the end, till they tell me that it's not the case. But I feel like it has to be.
It make zero sense to
it. Yeah, it was like, unless that's too much fan service to be like, here's this actor playing the character. No, it's like, you got these movies, you have them now. Why not bring everything together? Especially if the Spider-Man rumors are true. It's like, you have to. You can't just. You have to be able to have that character in here, and that character in the Quicksilver in the Fox movies is seriously such the vibe that is the Marvel movies. It makes sense.
Yeah, and it would be a huge miss to let him go, and I would be shocked if he is not the like. I actually would be shocked because I just think Kevin Feige always knows what's going on, and I don't think he would plan this because I think he would be like, this would kind of piss people off because we're about to introduce the X-Men, and now they're just not going to trust us. I don't think that's the best way to start with the X-Men in the MCU. Question to you, Peter. We're talking about these big fights, all these players we have. I mean, do you think we're going to see Doctor Strange next episode?
I think we will. I think it has to. I think he has to be the bridge that brings us to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That is quite the title. I think he's going to be the one that brings it. I think it's needed. I feel like the fact that these events are happening so quickly together in the timeline of Marvel, it only makes sense that while Far From Home is happening, that Wanda is somewhere with Doctor Strange, or something is going on, because everything is still connected. So there has to be, they can't not have some significance if it doesn't impact the future movies.
Mm-hmm. And here's a theory for you of kind of how I think it will go down is I think we may lose Vision, but the fight between Agatha, maybe Monica, Pietro, they're gonna win that. Right? And then that will cause whatever is behind Agatha to come out and it'd be like, oh crap, this is a huge villain, and that's when Doctor Strange shows up. Because I agree, you cannot. I mean, I guess you can, but you really have to have Strange show up at the end of this because it's got to directly lead into Multiverse of Madness, and it's just also a type of thing, Peter, where if we're supposed to, we know this world, right? We know Marvel, we know it's all connected. How the hell could this be going on and Doctor Strange not be doing anything? Because you know he would know about it, and you know he would do something. And there's no Captain America or Tony or Natasha, but all three of them would have done something too. And so it is Doctor Strange kind of who is the one to do it. I mean, I guess Hawkeye is friends with Wanda, but I don't think he could sense it. Don't you think Doctor Strange has to know this is going on?
I think so, and I think he's necessary in order to further strengthen and develop Wanda as a Scarlet Witch, because as was evident here, she didn't know half the things she was doing, according to Agatha, and she was doing these spells and whatnot, but didn't know how to control them necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So either maybe it ends that Wanda goes mad and she gets lost in the multiverse of madness, and that's what happens, or when he has to come find her, or something has to happen where there's a connection, because something has to be happening at the same time that Far From Home is happening that's not impacting Far From Home and allows it to happen, but at the same time still connects it back at the end of Far From Home.
Yeah, I think we could be in some sort of situation, and I think you've hinted at this, and you might have actually said this last week, but where the end of this is going to be like Doctor Strange and Wanda are going to go into the multiverse of madness to find someone, to get someone, whether that be the children, whether that be Pietro. I think that is because I think there's got to be a reason for them to go into the multiverse of madness. And what you just said of maybe Wanda gets lost, I think it's the two of them together going to get something, but I could be wrong.
I like that. I like that idea where they're going to get something that's necessary for what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And then, do you think we're going to see the aerospace engineer? We got to, right? I mean, there's so many of these things. It's like, why did you have 10 lines about it then?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, at least if we get a name for the aerospace engineer, we get a something. I think there needs to be, even if we just hear that Reed Richards exists out there in the world, like, I just need some kind of confirmation that there was a reason that name was brought up so often, like you just said.
Did you see the Boyega theory?
I did. I would not be surprised because he's doing very well right now as an actor. So I mean, he just won a Golden Globe the other day. So I feel like
I'm not going to get too deep into that because I don't want to spoil that. Boyega has been rumored to maybe show up. I'm not going to say in what role, but maybe he could be the engineer.
And I think that what adds fuel to that is that he was in Star Wars. Disney owns Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It's considered that he was given a disservice in Star Wars. You know, he got not the greatest end of the deal. So I mean,
they should just get rid of those They just it's tough. They just screwed him so hard.
So it would be interesting to see if he's like, well, come over here and we will give you a good deal. I mean, Marvel seems like the place to go if you want to improve your career.
Yeah, and I think he would. I mean, we're talking about. I think you referenced earlier how Evan Peters fits into the MCU. I mean, John Boyega's style, his comedic timing, and he totally fits into the MCU. And I saw something where someone was like, "Oh, I don't want Marvel and Star Wars to cross over." Where it's, well, sorry, freaking Poe Dameron, that guy is gonna be Moon Knight.
Yeah,
it's already happening. It's gonna happen. And okay. Final time we're gonna do some final predictions here, Peter.
Okay.
I know we're gonna go down with the ship with our theories. I know I'm gonna do that, and I know you're gonna do that, so I respect you for that. Who is helping who is the big bad? You can go first.
I want to say Mephisto. I feel like it makes sense that it's Mephisto. I feel like the fact that we've got the Eternals coming up, I feel like that also plays into the Mephisto aspect of it. I feel like we need a big bad that's going to be bigger than Thanos, that has that same menacing presence that reaches out through the entire galaxy, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I feel like it would make sense to be Mephisto. I would put it on Mephisto.
Okay. I still think there's a big bad out there. I am kind of more now. I kind of might think it might be Nightmare. And here's why. Nightmare is all about dreams And this Wanda thing is kind of like if you mentioned the Dick Van Dyke Show, it's all about you're in a bad dream and you want to wake up. And the other reason that I think Nightmare is very possible is because we've had both Nightmare and Mephisto references. They're messing with us. If we're going by the comic book route, it is Mephisto. They've said Nightmare so many times, and Nightmare was rumored to be the villain in Doctor Strange 2. Like that was, I know Scott Derrickson left, who was going to direct that or wrote that. I don't know if they just completely wrote a new script though. I that's why I'm right. I don't know. It's Nightmare or Mephisto. I will lean Nightmare, but it just is. It's got to. It has to be someone though. I know it's someone. I don't think it's just Agatha. I'm confident enough in that. I think it's. It's got to be Nightmare or Mephisto. I would be shocked if it's anyone else. And what? I'm gonna get this fucking clipped, and I'm gonna be totally wrong, and it's gonna be someone else. But I'm obviously not that confident in that. But I am going to say that it is Nightmare. So let's talk about that then. We're talking. What do we think the final cameo will be? Do we think it'll be that big bad, or do you think it'll be something else?
So my brain honestly will hurt when I start going down the cameo route because I thought it all, I've seen it all, I have seen, because there's the whole thing that Elizabeth Olsen said, it's a Luke Skywalker level cameo. Paul Bettany has said it's someone he's wanted to act with for forever.
Oh, can we also really quickly acknowledge that Paul Bettany might have been trolling all of us about acting with an actor who, and it was himself.
So that's what I was going to say. I think that's highly possible, though. What did set out to me today, and it might not necessarily be like an MCU level type cameo, but I feel like because this show has been built on sitcoms and it's the whole idea of sitcoms throughout the whole thing, what kind of stood out to me was the significance they made of the Dick Van Dyke Show in this episode. So I almost feel like maybe Dick Van Dyke is going to make a cameo because he consulted on the first, I think, 3 episodes for with Marvel. Because they were like, how did you do this back in the day? Tell us. Mm-hmm. I don't think he would be playing, say, Mephisto or Nightmare because he is 97, 98. So he's got a very full life.
Like a Stan Lee type thing.
I think, yeah, because we don't have the Stan Lee cameos, sadly, anymore. So I feel like he could play that. He could play a role as one of the Chaos Magic Elders. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential where that could be a cameo, but I don't know.
Okay, I got a wild prediction here.
Let me hear it.
The Luke Skywalker-esque reveal. So we're thinking someone big. Well, what if it's Luke Skywalker? Hear me out. In the animated Marvel show that went on for forever, that was incredibly successful, Nightmare was in it. Mark Hamill voiced Nightmare. Mark Hamill has been rumored for the last 10 years to maybe be a Nightmare type villain or something like that in the MCU. What if the final Luke Skywalker-esque reveal is Mark Hamill Nightmare? I think that would be insane. I don't know. I can't get it out of my. That's why I went to Nightmare, is because I remember that he was the voice, and it's this Luke Skywalker-esque reveal. I mean, if I could have anything, I want Michael Fassbender Magneto, but that's what I don't know. What do you think of that?
I really like that because I feel like he is someone who definitely enjoys acting still. I feel like he enjoys the roles. He had a small arc on the CW's The Flash for a bit, playing the toy maker. So he was Star Wars. I mean, he came back for Star Wars. So he's definitely still involved. And it's the kind of actor you would want for these kind of roles because it also crosses generations. It's universe connecting in a sense.
If they end WandaVision by bringing Mark Hamill to the MCU and it's on like they just started Disney Plus off with such a bang, that's insane.
That wouldn't surprise me. I would be like, bravo. I applaud this decision. I think I don't know. I mean, the final episode is supposed to be insane.
I have a theory of one of the post-credit scenes. I think we will see J. Jonah Jameson get put into this universe. Because he's there in Spider-Man Far From Home. That happens after this. I wouldn't be surprised because does tie into Spider-Man. We keep hearing how this ties into Spider-Man. WandaVision, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. I wouldn't, because I don't think Spider-Man's going to show up or anything like that. But I do think some sort of reference to like, hey, this WandaVision did affect that Spider-Man Far From Home movie. They might do something like that.
I can see that. I can see that's a small way that it affected it without fully making it like, oh, we took over the whole plot with it.
50 minutes. Any other any other things we need to get out there before we wrap this up? Well, obviously we're going to be doing a recap. We might even do, if you're down, a recap a little earlier next weekend to get that out to the good people who are watching. But any final thoughts? I mean, obviously we both love this series and we'll give our final thoughts on it as a whole next week. But going into this finale, what you got?
I think going into the finale, I think the structure of the show, the one episode a week, has served it so well. I think it has really allowed the show to breathe, and it opens itself up to rewatching. Like, I definitely rewatch each episode at least 3 times just
Same.
to fully, you get something more each time. So I think when we don't have theaters, we have it here in our homes. You know, it's like, this is the type of show you want to watch. This is the type of storytelling they needed. Really, if they wanted to make streaming work, they needed this kind of show to really set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be wildly different in tone wise. But I think
that's more traditional MCU. This was Marvel. I mean, they always know what to do. I said this last week, but the fact that they took Vision and Wanda and made this show break Disney Plus basically every time it comes out.
It's so annoying when that happens.
It's so annoying. I have to start the episode at like 12:07. It's like, come on, I'm ready.
Even the next day too, there's like little glitches in the screen when you're trying to watch it because the whole world is trying to watch this.
Mm-hmm. Which is crazy because, again, I'm a comic book nerd. I love superheroes. I'll watch anything. But Vision and Wanda are so far down on this list. I mean, they've obviously risen because this has been so incredible. One last thing, I'm very curious of how they wrap up the X-Men aspect of this, because that mutant thing is obviously on everyone's mind, and what they say at the end of this is gonna basically establish the baseline for what we know about mutants. I don't think we're gonna see mutants in we might see a mutant in Falcon Winter Soldier. I don't know, but don't you think they have to make some sort of statement about mutants? I guess, like, not a statement, but give us something.
I mean, there's always a possibility, she just blows up the Hex and it envelops the entire world, and boom, there we have mutants born.
Yeah, because this show is based on a lot of comic books, but one of them is House of M. And at the end of House of M, Wanda basically melts down and says, "No more mutants." And, like, all the mutants go away. So we could look at maybe a reverse version of that. Mm-hmm. I think one thing, though, at least how I haven't been thinking of, like, oh, what if Wanda loses? I haven't been thinking about that enough. And I think that could be a possibility. Not like she gets killed or anything, but that makes her, like, expanded even more, like you were saying, or make the multiverse dies,
go
crazy.
Kids die, everything's dead, and she's just literally like, here, we're throwing every possible grief you can get as a person on you.
And and it also, like, I'm thinking about it right now. We've been talking about this show now for a couple weeks on the pod, but texting about it, obviously. I guess I'd just be really surprised if it has a happy ending.
I think there's going to be closure. I don't think it'll necessarily be happy. I think it's going to be more of those, again, similar to the ending of Endgame, where it's like, you can breathe a little bit, but you're kind of left with kind of like mixed feelings of grief.
Is Wanda so let's say she is able to handle her grief if she loses Vision and she accepts that. I don't know about her kids, though.
Yeah, I don't think she can lose the kids. I don't think that's something that's going to be helpful for her. I think the kids are instrumental if we are going to pursue the Young Avengers in the future, which Marvel has hinted at. So I feel like they wouldn't just create them and, like, surprise, we're taking them away. I feel like maybe they're going to grow. Maybe they'll grow up quicker by the end of the episode, too, of the finale. We see them as teenagers by the end of the episode.
Yeah, because they're stressed out, and so they do that thing again. It's a good point. So much to talk about here. Peter, anything else before we wrap up?
I think
we could talk about this for 4 hours.
We honestly could. We keep finding more things and more things we could
Yeah.
say. But I just feel like the next episode is really gonna. It's wild. I'm excited to see as a consumer what Funko Pops get released because
Oh
I
yeah, me
saw that
too.
they're
I love Funko
releasing the
Pops.
Agatha and the White Vision ones are coming out soon. I saw that announcement today.
My guy's gonna show up. You know,
you have Doctor Strange. I have. Where are they? I
What you got
have
going?
my black and white.
Oh, that is freaking sweet.
I got those.
Oh, I like those a lot. I got the Ragnarok Hulk too.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, he's dope. And I got a big Thanos one. Yeah, I'm a nerd, and I'm
I
proud
have
of
a
it.
bunch of them too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Loki's coming out June 11th.
We're just having an abundance of riches over here.
We are
Marvel
going to be
fans.
looking at zoomed in photos and slowed scenes of Marvel shit for like the next 5 years. So,
and at this point, we might get a movie come May. So, I mean,
hopefully, I would love that. And then, I mean, down the line is Shang-Chi, where you would assume we might see some mutants as well.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back next week, everyone. Episode 9. It's like one of the biggest Marvel events since Endgame, I feel like. I'm really excited. It's great to have Marvel back. And yeah, Peter, a pleasure as always.
This has been a lot of fun.
Talk to you next week.